America's combat mission will be over by the end of this year. Starting next year, Afghans will be fully responsible for securing their country. American personnel will be in an advisory role. We will no longer patrol Afghan cities or towns, mountains or valleys. That is a task for the Afghan people. Second, I've made it clear that we're open to cooperating with Afghans on two narrow missions after 2014: training Afghan forces and supporting counterterrorism operations against the remnants of al-Qaeda.
It wasn't really a surprise because the Pentagon had been asking for around that number of troops, and this is what he delivered. But it's important to realize that the war is not going to end even after 2016 because the U.S. is allied with power brokers, warlords, also the Afghan army, who are going to be continuing to fight the war on terror on the U.S.'s behalf.
But even after 2016, even if will it only be Afghan warlords who will be fighting, or will special operations forces remain?
No, after 2016, it'll only be Afghan warlords. But for the next 2 years, it'll be special operation forces. And when he says counterterrorism operations, what he means is night raids, targeted killings, and allying with these warlords.
And what about mercenaries? What about private contractors?
Yeah, I mean, when I say warlords, I mean private contractors because the U.S. is paying for them, essentially. They are mercenaries. They're paramilitary forces. There's hundreds of thousands of them around the country.
And they will leave also, at least according to this plan, by the end of 2016, or continue?
No, they'll continue. These are Afghans, actually. These mercenaries and private security contractors, unlike Iraq, they're mostly Afghans. They're mostly people who the U.S. has been paying unofficially over the last 10 or 15 years. They're going to continue. So it's going to look like a proxy war, essentially, of Afghans who are being paid by the U.S. to fight against the Taliban.
So do we have an idea of these 9,800 troops that will remain in Afghanistan? How many of them will be special operations forces, special forces?
It's unclear at the moment, but we can expect a sizable number to be special forces because you don't need a lot of advisors.
Well, could you explain what is the distinction between special operations? What do they do as against regular military personnel?
So the special operations forces, these are the ones who are doing what are called counterterrorism operations, which means, for example, night raids. So that's going into people's houses, taking people who are suspected to be Taliban or al-Qaeda, sending them to Bagram. In previous years, they were sending them to Guantanamo. It also means targeted killings. So there's a list of Afghans who are supposedly enemies of the United States who will be targeted through drone strikes or through conventional types of attacks.
Can you talk about this election that is taking place and what the two major candidates represent? What is the role of Hamid Karzai?
Both candidates actually have a surprisingly similar platform. There's really not much that's different between the two of them. Both have pledged to sign the agreement that would keep U.S. forces in Afghanistan over the next 2 years. Both are considered to be very pro-American. They both recognize that without the U.S.'s support, financial support particularly, they wouldn't be able to exist. The Afghan government wouldn't be able to exist because the U.S. actually pays for the government to function.
And in your reporting in Afghanistan over the course of the work that you've done there, what did you find was the effect among Afghans of the kinds of operations that you suggest the special forces will continue to carry out?
Well, you know, Afghanistan's complicated because the war is only being fought in about half the country. And in that half of the country where these raids are being carried out, people are very angry and have been angry at the U.S. forces. If you ask somebody what do you think about the United States in these areas, they will say, oh, these are the people who come and kick our doors down in the middle of the night and take our loved ones away. And so in those areas, they're happy that by 2016, this will hopefully be over.